Thanks very much, Lasky Corla. I'd like to thank the Regional Independent Group for putting forward this motion, which I support. I'd also like to maybe say that, Minister Ryan, I don't necessarily agree with you on a lot of points, but I'm willing to accept that you sincerely hold those viewpoints, and I'd like to thank you for coming into the Dáil to debate this issue and to debate these issues, because lots of ministers don't. Now, they all should do, but they don't. So I think it is important that we debate it. I've debated some of these issues with you before. Obviously, there's a lot of good ideas in this about how we can increase energy supply in the short term. And the government's response, and indeed Sinn Féin's response to the humongous rise in energy costs, is a very short-term approach, in that whether it's a price cap that's going to the spring of next year, or whether it's universal credits that are only going to go to the spring of next year. But I haven't really heard anybody address how we're going to meet the energy demands of this state in the medium to long term. Because, yes, I greatly look forward, as I'm sure do you, Minister, to the offshore wind energy of the Atlantic being harnessed. But that technology isn't there yet. And nobody's suggesting that we're going to do that in the short term. Yes, we can have offshore wind farms off the east coast of Ireland, but nobody's suggesting that we'll be turning wind energy into hydrogen in the short term anywhere in Ireland. So how are we going to meet those demands? It was one of the first acts of this state was to guarantee energy security. And I'm sure you're keenly aware of the project that was Ardnacrusha. And in the 80s, the state boldly moved forward and built a coal power plant. Of course, we now know that that's not, nobody wants to continue with that into the long term. But it was an attempt to meet the demands of this state. I have heard nobody explain how we're going to meet the demands now. I've heard people ruling out stuff. Minister, you've ruled out an LNG base. Like you, I don't want to see fracked gas coming to Ireland, but we do have to have gas storage, particularly if our only source of energy, when wind isn't blowing, is going to be gas-powered. And we're going to have to get the gas that we're not getting through on boats, that it's going to have to come through the United Kingdom. Which has no requirement to treat us equally or in the event of a shortage since they left the European Union. I've heard you rule out nuclear. I mean, the last time you were in government, you brought nuclear. I accept that nuclear is not cheap. But there is no cheap energy source available to us now. Yes, wind energy is cheap, but it's only available to us when wind is blowing. So how are we going to fuel our industries, our hospitals, our schools? This Parliament, for what it's worth fueling or keeping the lights on in. Because it's not worth keeping the lights on here if we cannot tell the Irish people how we are going to provide energy. If the first men and women who sat in this Dáil after Irish independence could clearly tell people how we were going to power the state, and we can't, then we do not deserve to keep the lights on here, Minister. And I'm asking you to tell us in the medium to long term, and I congratulate the regional group for the proposals that they have, but they're stopgap. By their nature, they're stopgap. In the longer term, how will we fuel this state? Some of your colleagues are happy to import nuclear energy, but not happy at all to discuss that we would generate our own and have a degree of self-sufficiency and energy security. I'm not a proponent of nuclear energy, but I'm saying we have to be realistic and we have to examine all of the options available to us. Thank you, Les.